Imagine a world where everyone is running faster, louder, trying to overtake someone they don't even know. But have you ever stopped and asked yourself, where am I really going? Most people spend their lives trying to outshine others, and in doing so, they forget to discover their own light. The truth is simple. You can't win a race that was never meant for you. And that, my friends, is why focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is the greatest investment you can ever make. Because the day you start competing with your old self instead of your neighbor, that is the day you truly begin to grow. Main body, the power unfolds. When you focus on yourself, you begin to understand your own strengths, your own pace, and your own path. You stop chasing trends and start chasing purpose. The noise around you fades, and in that silence, you hear something priceless, your own inner voice. We often think success is about speed, but it's not. It's about direction. You can run very fast and still end up nowhere if you are not focused on your path. Self-focus gives you that direction. It makes your actions intentional and your goals meaningful. And yes, there will be moments of loneliness. When people misunderstand your silence, when they question your patience. But remember, great transformations happen quietly. Seeds grow in darkness before they bloom in sunlight. Closing, emotional, and inspiring. One day, when you look back, you will realize it was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving yourself right. You didn't need to be louder. You just needed to be consistent, honest, and focused. So today, promise yourself one thing: don't waste your energy competing with others. Invest it in becoming a better version of you. Because when you grow, everything connected to you, your family, your work, your world, grows with you. And that, my friends, is the quiet, unstoppable power of focusing on yourself. There comes a time in everyone's life when you begin to question why, despite your hard work, you don't feel truly fulfilled. You may be working day and night, pushing yourself harder than ever, yet the sense of satisfaction never arrives. That's because, for most of us, we've been taught to measure our worth through comparison. To look at what others are doing, how far they've gone, how much they've earned, and how much applause they receive. But the truth is, comparison is the thief of peace. And the only real competition you have is the person staring back at you in the mirror. The mirror never lies. It doesn't show you who others think you are. It shows you who you really are. And that reflection is the most honest feedback you will ever receive. The mirror principle is simple. Before you try to change the world, before you try to prove anyone wrong, look at yourself and ask, am I truly doing my best? Because the journey to greatness always begins with self-awareness. When you focus on your reflection, you start realizing that growth is not about being better than others. It's about being better than yesterday's version of you. The mirror teaches humility. It reminds you that your strengths and weaknesses both belong to you, and that blaming others or comparing yourself to them will never move you forward. It is only when you take responsibility for what you see in the mirror that transformation begins. Most people live their lives as if they're in a race, constantly running, constantly comparing. They look left and right, counting how far everyone else has gone, but they forget to look inward. The problem with comparison is that it never ends. There will always be someone richer, faster, smarter, or luckier, and if you live for comparison, you'll always feel behind. But when you look in the mirror and compete with yourself, you create a race that only you can win. Every great leader, every successful innovator, every fulfilled person you admire, they all began by looking in the mirror and asking, what can I do better? They didn't waste time worrying about what others were achieving. They focused on their craft, their discipline, their mindset. The mirror became their mentor. When you truly understand the power of self-focus, something magical happens. You stop seeking validation. You no longer need others to clap for you because you know who you are and what you're capable of. You realize that the reflection in the mirror is both your biggest critic and your greatest supporter. It will tell you when you're off track, but it will also remind you of how far you've come. Of course, the mirror doesn't always show a pleasant picture. Sometimes it reveals the truth we've been avoiding, the habits we need to change, the mistakes we need to accept, and the growth we've been delaying. But instead of feeling defeated, use that moment as a turning point, because self-honesty is the beginning of self-improvement. You cannot fix what you refuse to face. You cannot become your best self while hiding from your flaws. It takes courage to look into the mirror and say, I can do better. It takes maturity to admit that the only person responsible for your growth is you. And it takes wisdom to understand that focusing on yourself is not arrogance, it's self-respect. You're not ignoring the world, you're simply choosing to build yourself before you try to build anything else. When you focus on yourself, you also stop being jealous of others' success. You begin to admire them instead, because now you understand that their path is different, their timing is different, and their purpose is different. You no longer feel threatened, you feel inspired. That shift in mindset turns competition into motivation and envy into energy for growth. Every morning when you stand before the mirror, you're being offered a fresh start. That reflection is not just your image, it's a story in progress. It's a reminder that yesterday's failures don't define you, and today's decisions can change everything. You have the power to rewrite your story, to evolve, to rise. But it all begins with the willingness to see yourself clearly and work on what you see. So, the next time you find yourself comparing your journey to someone else's, pause and look in the mirror. Ask yourself, am I better than I was yesterday? Am I doing something today that my future self will thank me for? If the answer is yes, then you're already winning, because the moment you start focusing on your own growth, you free yourself from the need to prove anything to anyone. The mirror principle is about taking ownership of your life. It's about accepting that no one else is responsible for your progress, your happiness, or your peace of mind. It's about realizing that the person in the mirror holds both the problem and the solution. Every success story starts when someone decides to stop pointing fingers outward and start working inward. When you wake up each morning and choose to focus on yourself, your habits, your mindset, your purpose, you begin to align your life with your true potential. You stop wasting time in comparison and start investing time in transformation. And one day, you'll look in that same mirror, smile, and realize this is the person I always wanted to become. That is the power of focusing on yourself, not to become better than anyone else, but to become the best version of you. And when that happens, the reflection in the mirror won't just show your face. It will show your growth, your strength, and your peace. The silent proof that you have finally mastered the most powerful competition in the world, the one with yourself. Today's world, everyone is speaking, posting, sharing, and shouting their opinions. Every second, thousands of voices compete for attention, and in that noise, one voice often gets lost, your own. We are surrounded by distractions, social media, gossip, competition, and endless comparisons. But there is one truth most people never realize. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is strength. When you focus on yourself, you learn to be comfortable in silence, and in that silence, you find clarity, confidence, and peace. Silence is powerful because it allows you to listen, not to the outside world, but to your inner world. Most people are afraid of being alone with their thoughts, because silence reveals things we try to ignore, our fears, our weaknesses, and our truth. But it is in facing those truths that we truly grow. When you stop reacting to every distraction and start reflecting in silence, you gain something rare, control over yourself. You stop letting the noise of others dictate your direction. You begin to hear the voice that matters most, the one inside you saying, "Keep going, you can do better, you are enough." Focusing on yourself doesn't mean isolating from the world. It means learning to filter it. It means choosing not to respond to every criticism, every rumor, every opinion. It means understanding that your energy is precious and not every battle deserves your attention. When you focus on yourself, you begin to differentiate between what is urgent and what is important, between what deserves your time and what simply distracts you from your purpose. In silence, ideas are born. Great thinkers, innovators, and leaders have always understood this, that the best decisions are made not in noise, but in calm. Noise leads to reaction, silence leads to reflection, and reflection leads to wisdom. When you create space for silence in your life, you allow yourself to think deeply, to feel genuinely, and to act purposefully. There will be moments when people misunderstand your silence. They might think you are weak, uninterested, or detached, but in reality, silence is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of discipline. It shows that you have nothing to prove to anyone. The one who knows their worth doesn't need to announce it. They let their actions speak, because in silence you are not just observing the world. You are observing yourself. You are learning patience, you are building resilience, and you are strengthening your mind. The most successful people are not always the loudest, they are often the quietest when it matters. They don't need to talk about what they are doing because they are busy doing it. They understand that true focus requires withdrawal from noise. They value peace more than popularity. They know that a calm mind makes clear decisions. When you focus on yourself in silence, you no longer seek approval. You seek progress. You stop being reactive and start being proactive. You become intentional with your words, your actions, and your time. It takes courage to be silent in a world that glorifies noise. It takes strength to walk away from meaningless debates, from arguments that go nowhere, from opinions that don't add value to your life. When you master the art of silence, you begin to respond from wisdom, not emotion. You learn that silence often wins where words fail. Because silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say, it means you are choosing what's worth saying. When you start focusing on yourself, you begin to understand that your peace is your greatest power. Every time you react to negativity, you hand that power away. But when you stay silent, you protect it. You build an inner shield that guards your focus, your time, and your energy. Slowly, you stop needing external validation. You stop explaining yourself to those who will never understand your journey. You start to value your mental peace over proving your point. In silence, you can hear the whispers of your purpose. You begin to notice what truly matters to you, your growth, your dreams, your happiness. You realize that not every noise requires attention, not every voice deserves a response, and not every problem needs your participation. You learn to let go of what doesn't serve you and hold on to what makes you better. You learn to listen, not to reply, but to understand. And in that understanding, you find maturity. Every person who learns to focus on themselves will go through a phase of silence, where the world misunderstands you, where friends drift away, where distractions no longer attract you. It's a lonely phase, but it's also a sacred one, because in that quiet space, you begin to rebuild yourself. You begin to realize that solitude is not emptiness. It's a workshop for the soul. It's where broken parts of you heal, where confidence is rebuilt, and where your true self is rediscovered. When you embrace silence, you also develop emotional intelligence. You learn that not every insult needs a comeback, not every argument needs your participation, and not every situation deserves your reaction. You begin to see that silence used wisely is not avoidance, it's awareness. It's choosing peace over chaos, progress over drama, and growth over attention. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by the world's noise, take a step back, disconnect for a moment, sit in silence, listen to your heart, reflect on your goals. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me? Because once you understand that, the noise loses its power. You become centered, grounded, and unstoppable. The greatest strength a person can have is not the ability to speak louder than others, but the ability to remain calm when everyone else is shouting. Silence sharpens your focus. It teaches you to observe more, to think deeper, and to respond with wisdom. And when you focus on yourself with that quiet determination, you don't just find peace, you find power. The kind of power that doesn't need to be announced because it's visible in your actions, in your growth, and in the calm confidence of your silence. That is the true strength of focusing on yourself, the strength that grows in silence, thrives in peace, and speaks only when it truly matters. There is a common misconception in today's world that success happens overnight. We see people on social media celebrating achievements, buying expensive cars, traveling the world, and living the life many of us dream of. But what we don't see are the long nights, the failures, the self-doubt, and the years of silent effort that led to those moments. The truth is, real success is not built on luck or noise, it's built on patience and persistence. And the only way to master those two qualities is by focusing on yourself, not on what others are doing, not on who is ahead, but on your own steady progress. Patience and persistence are not glamorous words. They don't attract attention the way quick success stories do, but they are the foundation of everything meaningful in life. A seed doesn't grow into a tree overnight. It spends time underground, unseen, silently pushing its roots deep into the soil. If it were to rush the process, it would never be strong enough to stand against the wind. In the same way, when you focus on yourself, you must understand that growth takes time, and it happens quietly away from the spotlight. In every journey, there are moments when you feel like giving up. You might work hard and see no results for weeks or even months. You might see others moving faster and wonder why your turn hasn't come yet. That's when patience becomes your greatest strength. Because patience is not about waiting. It's about how you behave while you're waiting. It's about trusting your process, even when there's no visible progress. When you focus on yourself, you realize that timing is different for everyone. Your story doesn't have to match anyone else's. Persistence, on the other hand, is what keeps the fire burning when motivation fades. Motivation is temporary, it comes and goes, but persistence is a choice. It's the voice inside you that says, I will try again, even after failure. It's what separates those who dream from those who achieve. People often give up not because they lack ability, but because they lose patience. They stop right before things were about to change. But when you focus on yourself, you develop persistence, the ability to keep going no matter how slow the journey feels. The truth is, every success story has a silent chapter, the one nobody sees. The early mornings, the sacrifices, the small steps that look insignificant but build the foundation for something extraordinary. When you focus on yourself, you learn to appreciate these small steps. You stop expecting immediate rewards and start valuing steady growth. You understand that it's better to move slowly in the right direction than to move fast and lose your way. Patience also teaches you emotional strength. In a world that demands instant results, being patient makes you different. It makes you wise. It teaches you to control your emotions, to stay calm when things don't go your way, and to believe that effort will pay off, even when it takes time. The universe has its own timing, and the best things in life never arrive rushed. When you force outcomes, you often break the very process that was meant to build you. Persistence, meanwhile, builds resilience. It's the habit of standing up every time life knocks you down. It's easy to be positive when everything is working, but persistence is what keeps you moving when nothing seems to work. It's what makes you show up again and again with faith that someday your hard work will bear fruit. When you focus on yourself, you stop seeking shortcuts. You realize that shortcuts may take you somewhere fast, but persistence takes you somewhere lasting. Many people quit because they compare their chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 20. They see others succeeding and feel defeated. But when you focus on yourself, you stop comparing timelines. You understand that everyone's journey is unique, shaped by different experiences and lessons. You learn to trust your pace. You realize that slow progress is still progress, and as long as you keep moving, you're not failing, you're growing. Patience and persistence also teach humility. They remind you that greatness is not about rushing ahead, but about enduring the process with grace. The strongest people are not those who never fall. They are those who fall, learn, and rise again, quietly, consistently, and with faith. Focusing on yourself gives you the mental space to build this strength. You stop reacting to distractions, and instead you stay centered on your purpose. Every time you face an obstacle, you have two choices: give up or grow through it. Those who focus on themselves choose growth. They see challenges not as barriers, but as opportunities to build endurance. Every struggle teaches patience. Every setback builds persistence. Over time, these qualities transform you into someone unshakable, someone who doesn't just chase success, but earns it with integrity and resilience. The beauty of patience and persistence is that they turn ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. You don't need to be the smartest, the richest, or the most talented. You just need to keep going. Because consistency beats intensity every single time. One drop of water falling again and again on the same rock can carve through stone. That is the quiet power of persistence. Small, steady actions repeated over time. So, when you feel like your progress is slow, remind yourself, every great tree was once a small seed buried in darkness. Every masterpiece took years to create. Every successful person you admire once stood where you stand now, uncertain, unnoticed, but unwilling to quit. The difference between them and those who gave up is simple. They stayed patient and kept going. If you can focus on yourself and master these two traits, patience and persistence, then success becomes inevitable. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day. Because success built slowly with patience will always last longer than success built quickly with shortcuts. In the end, the world may not see your struggle, but it will see your results. And when that day comes, you'll know it was your patience and persistence, not luck or applause, that brought you here. So keep going, be patient, stay persistent, and trust that every small step you take today is silently building the future you've been dreaming of. There is a common mistake people make when they talk about success. They believe it depends on motivation. They think they must wake up every morning feeling inspired, energetic, and ready to conquer the world. But the truth is, no one feels motivated every day. Even the most successful people wake up tired, unexcited, and doubtful at times. The difference is not that they are always motivated, but that they are disciplined. Motivation may push you to start something, but discipline keeps you going when motivation disappears. That is why focusing on yourself is so important. Because when you focus inward, you learn to rely not on feelings, but on habits. Motivation is like a spark. It burns bright, but it fades quickly. Discipline is like a slow, steady flame. It may not be as exciting, but it never goes out. When you depend on motivation, your actions depend on your mood. You work hard only when you feel good, and you stop when things get difficult. But when you build discipline, you do what needs to be done, no matter how you feel. That is what separates dreamers from achievers. The world is full of people who start with excitement but stop when things get hard. The ones who reach the top are those who keep going long after the excitement is gone. When you focus on yourself, you begin to understand your patterns. You realize that discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about showing up again and again, even when no one is watching. It's about doing small things every day that move you forward, even when progress feels invisible. The truth is, greatness is built in ordinary moments, in quiet mornings, in lonely nights, in routine actions that seem small but create powerful results over time. Self-discipline is also a form of self-respect. When you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you build trust with yourself. Each time you follow through, you prove that your word matters. That trust becomes the foundation of confidence. People often think confidence comes from achievements, but real confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. When you know you can rely on yourself, you no longer depend on others for validation. You stop waiting for perfect circumstances and start creating them. Building discipline requires honesty. You must be honest about your excuses, the little lies you tell yourself when you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," or "I don't feel like it today." Discipline means doing it anyway. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about guiding yourself. It's about saying, "I may not feel like doing this now, but I know it will make me better." It's choosing long-term satisfaction over short-term comfort. When you focus on yourself, you stop chasing quick results and start building habits that last. Every strong person you admire once struggled with consistency. They weren't born disciplined. They became disciplined. They trained their mind to choose action over excuses. They built routines that protected their focus and energy, and over time those routines became part of who they were. That's the power of focusing on yourself. It allows you to shape your own character, one decision at a time. Motivation often depends on external things, an inspiring video, a compliment, or a reward. But discipline is internal. It's built from within. It doesn't depend on applause or attention. It depends on your commitment. Discipline is doing the right thing when no one is watching. It's finishing what you started, even when it's boring, difficult, or uncomfortable. And ironically, when you stay disciplined long enough, motivation returns, not from outside, but from the satisfaction of progress. One of the biggest challenges people face today is distraction. We live in a world designed to steal our focus. Endless scrolling, constant notifications, and the illusion of productivity. But when you focus on yourself and build discipline, you learn to control your attention. You set boundaries. You decide what deserves your time and what doesn't. You realize that every time you give in to distraction, you are delaying your own growth. Self-discipline teaches you to say no, not just to others, but to your weaker self. Discipline also builds freedom. It might sound strange, but it's true. When you are disciplined, you are not controlled by impulses or moods. You are not dependent on motivation to act. You are in charge. You decide your actions, not your emotions. You create structure in your day that leads to progress. Freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from mastering yourself so that you can choose wisely. The process of building discipline is not easy. It requires patience. There will be days when you feel like nothing is working, when you question why you're even trying. But those are the days that shape you. Every time you push through resistance, you become mentally stronger. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your inner voice grows louder, saying, I can do this. And over time, what once felt difficult becomes natural. What once required effort becomes a part of who you are. Discipline is what turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. It's what keeps athletes training when no one is watching. It's what keeps entrepreneurs working when results are uncertain. It's what makes students study long after everyone else has given up. Focusing on yourself gives you the space to build this discipline, to stop being distracted by others' timelines, and to commit to your own. You don't need to be the most talented person in the room. You just need to be the most consistent. Talent may give you a head start, but discipline determines how far you go. Discipline turns potential into performance. It transforms goals into results. It takes dreams out of your mind and builds them in reality. So focus on yourself. Build habits that strengthen your character. Wake up even when you don't feel like it. Work on your goals even when progress feels slow. Be proud of every small step, because those steps, repeated with discipline, will take you where motivation never could. And one day, when you look back, you will realize that it wasn't inspiration, luck, or talent that got you there. It was the quiet, consistent discipline of choosing to focus on yourself every single day, doing what needed to be done, even when it wasn't easy, even when no one noticed. Because discipline is not about perfection, it's about persistence. And when you build that within yourself, you build a life that no one can take away from you. When you focus on yourself, it may seem at first like a personal journey, something meant only for your growth, your peace, and your success. But as time passes, you begin to realize something deeper. When you improve yourself, you unconsciously begin to uplift others. The better you become, the more people around you benefit. This is the quiet power of self-focus. It doesn't end with you, it spreads through you. It transforms not just your life, but also the lives you touch. Every person carries an invisible energy. The way you speak, the way you act, and the way you think. People feel it. When you are confident, calm, and kind, that energy inspires others to feel the same. When you live with purpose and integrity, you set an example without even trying. The truth is, you don't need to preach or prove anything to influence others. You only need to live as your best self. Because people may not always listen to your words, but they always notice your behavior. In life, many people try to change the world without first changing themselves. They want to fix others, but never look within. But real impact begins inside. When you focus on yourself, on your habits, your mindset, and your values, you become a living example of what improvement looks like. You begin to show, not tell, and that has far greater power than words ever could. Think of the people who have truly inspired you. Maybe it was a teacher, a parent, a friend, or a mentor. What made them inspiring? It wasn't just what they said, it was how they lived. Their discipline, their patience, their resilience, and their authenticity. You admired them not because they told you what to do, but because they showed you what was possible. That's the essence of self-focus. Your growth becomes a light that quietly guides others. When you focus on yourself, you also create a ripple effect. You become more self-aware, more understanding, and more empathetic. You stop reacting from insecurity or jealousy because you no longer see others as competition. Instead, you start seeing them as companions on different journeys. This shift changes everything. It allows you to celebrate others' success genuinely, to offer help without expectation, and to lead without dominance. When you improve yourself, you naturally become a better friend, partner, parent, and leader. The most beautiful thing about focusing on yourself is that it teaches you balance. You learn that helping others doesn't mean losing yourself, and prioritizing yourself doesn't mean ignoring others. It means creating stability within so that you can give from strength, not from emptiness. You cannot pour from an empty cup. The more you grow internally, the more capable you become of supporting others with wisdom and love. Self-focus also brings clarity. When you understand your purpose, you inspire others to seek theirs. When you handle challenges calmly, you teach others that patience is more powerful than panic. When you forgive easily, you show others that peace is better than pride. In this way, your behavior becomes a message, a silent form of leadership that motivates people to become better versions of themselves. There's a misconception that focusing on yourself is selfish, but the truth is the opposite. The world becomes better when people take responsibility for their own growth. Imagine a workplace where everyone focuses on improving their own performance instead of blaming others. Imagine a home where each person works on patience, kindness, and understanding instead of arguing for control. That's what self-focus can do. It creates harmony from within. The world doesn't need more people trying to control others. It needs more people who can control themselves. When you learn to manage your emotions, your time, and your attitude, you automatically become a positive influence. People feel safe around those who are stable. They trust those who are consistent. Your calmness becomes contagious. Your humility becomes inspiring. Your success becomes proof that growth is possible without arrogance. When you improve yourself, you don't even need to tell others what you're doing. They will notice the change, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you handle pressure. People may start asking for your advice, not because you demanded respect, but because you earned it through example. This is how self-focus transforms into self-impact. It's not loud. It doesn't need applause. It's quiet, steady, and lasting. Even small improvements in yourself can make a big difference around you. When you become more patient, your relationships grow stronger. When you become more disciplined, your team becomes more productive. When you become more compassionate, your environment becomes kinder. Every bit of personal growth creates a wave that reaches farther than you can imagine. That's why focusing on yourself is not an act of isolation. It's an act of contribution. But to reach that level, you must stay consistent. You must keep working on your weaknesses, keep learning, and keep evolving. Because the moment you stop growing, your influence weakens. You cannot lead others through lessons you haven't learned yourself. True leadership is built on personal mastery, and personal mastery only comes through continuous self-focus. As you grow, you will begin to notice that your presence alone starts to impact others. You won't need to lecture or convince anyone. People will sense your peace, your confidence, and your authenticity. They will feel more at ease around you because they know you are centered. And when you reach that state, your life becomes your message. So remember this. Focusing on yourself is not about closing the world out. It's about preparing yourself to serve it better. Every time you choose growth over comfort, patience over frustration, and integrity over shortcuts, you are not just helping yourself. You are helping everyone who looks up to you. In the end, the greatest gift you can give the world is the best version of yourself. When you rise, you lift others with you. When you shine, you give others permission to shine too. And that is the quiet, beautiful, and unstoppable power of focusing on yourself. It begins with you, but it never ends there.